What's up, everybody? Chris Servishon here. BetterWayCPA.com is the website, and today I want to talk to you about business plans for marketing and creative agencies. I'm about 13 years into my career, plus or minus, where I've spent it advising and analyzing small businesses. And in this COVID pandemic sort of world, it's really become entirely obvious the two keys to success, the small businesses that we work with, what makes them successful, and what they have in common. Two things: have a business plan, so what you do, how you do it, why you do it, having that all laid out in one single document that's very well thought out. That's number one. Number two, understand cash flow, manage your cash flow. Everything boils down to cash. Now, I've got another webinar that I did. It's about an hour long that talks about cash flow, so I'm not really going to get into that here very much, but that is definitely one of the keys to success. Today, what I'm talking about specifically is business plans and what we like to see from our agency clients as far as what goes in them and what they think about as they're scaling up or as they're starting their business. So this list right here is the 9 sections that the SBA recommends that you have in your business plan. Business plans are as unique as every single business, as every single person who runs them. There is not really one cookie cutter formula that you want to have in there, but this is a good guidepost. It's a good place to start. So the 9 sections are the executive summary, the company description, market analysis, organization and management, service or product line, so what you're going to do, marketing and sales, your funding sources and or request. We say request because sometimes, quite often actually, you're going to give your business plan to a bank or a lender to secure some financing to get started, right? Financial projections, and then your appendix. Your appendix is basically all of the documents that you're going to attach to the business plan for whatever reason, whatever that may be, okay? And the link to the SBA website is going to be in the show notes here, so you can kind of go and see what the SBA wrote about how to put together a business plan. What I really want to talk about, though, are 6 different sections that we just kind of want to expand on. We want to provide you some more information as far as what we want to see in those particular sections. And so I'm going to dive into that right now. But number 1 is the company description. What we want in there is your mission, vision, values, and culture. Your mission is going to be your North Star. That's what's going to guide your business. Your vision is going to be where you see the business going. What is the future state? What do you want this to turn into? Your values are going to be your core principles. So what is right, quote unquote, for you and your business and your agency. And the culture is going to be the application of all of those things into your business practices. This is really, really crucial, really, really important. You've got to have this right. If you don't have this right, then almost nothing else matters. If you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it, you shouldn't really even be doing it, right? Makes sense. Number 2, market analysis. And I've kind of broken this down into industry analysis and competitor analysis. In the industry analysis, we want to know what are the trends. This should be fairly easy. You're in the industry. You're operating a marketing or creative agency. I hope, have some experience in that industry. You kind of know what's what, and you're trying to apply those skills into a business. So you should have a good idea of what the trends are. But if you want to get a broader perspective, it's always good to go look at industry publications, newsletters, yearly reports. There's a ton of resources out there. Just get as much information as podcasts. Just get as much information about the industry as you can so you know the environment that you're operating in. Common financial ratios and norms. This really kind of helps shape your thinking around budgeting, where you're going to spend your money, what you're going to need to start up, capital, those sorts of things, how you're operating. When you're first starting out, if you've never run a business before, it's very hard to know what is good. What does good even look like? A lot of people just go by what's in the bank account, but there's more to it than that for sure. So having a good understanding of what the industry ratios and what the industry norms are, that's a good place to start. It doesn't mean that that's exactly what you should be, but it's a good place to start. It puts some context around how you're operating and what your metrics are. What are the barriers to entry? Super important. So you need to know both what the barriers to entry are for you to get into the industry, for you to open a business in that industry, and you also need to know what the barriers to entry are and are going to be for your competition. Seems logical, right? Okay, competitor analysis. Who are your competitors now? Who do you expect them to be? Can you identify your competitors? If you can't, that's a problem unto itself. Where are they showing up? Are they showing up on podcasts? Are they showing up in industry articles? Are they showing up in local media? Are they showing up at B&I groups? Where do they show up? What do their funnels look like? You can reverse hack anybody's funnel. Go into their websites, go and try to figure out who their clients are. Sometimes you'll see on an agency website, they'll have logos or links to websites or of clients. Go check them out, right? So if you see on an agency's website, the competitor agency's website, that they've worked with company XYZ, go check out company XYZ's website, take a look at their funnels, take a look at their marketing collateral, try to reverse hack some of their funnels. So now you understand what they do, how they do it, and it kind of gives you some context as far as, just the game you're trying to play, okay? Where you can be better, where you can be different. What do they value? This is a great one. You'll figure this out by listening to podcasts of the agency employees and the agency owners and leadership. You'll figure this out by looking at Glassdoor. You'll figure this out by looking at PayScale. LinkedIn is a great source for this sort of analysis. So you want to figure out, you've got the agency owner or partners or whoever's going to be the head of the agency. You want to be looking at who reports to them. That's where LinkedIn kind of gets to be important. That's where Glassdoor kind of gets to be important. Who reports to them? So that's going to tell you what they value. If they've got a CFO that reports to the agency owner, then you know that financials are a thing that they really kind of value, and they want to be close to that. If they've got a salesperson that reports directly to the agency owner, then you know that sales is very, very important. They're scaling up, they're increasing their revenue, but maybe the agency owner doesn't even do that. Maybe they're just kind of in the business. You can figure out a lot just by doing research and listening to what the people who actually work in the agency or have worked in the agency, that's where Glassdoor comes in, what they're saying and what's important. You'll figure it out pretty quick exactly what they value. What you want to do is figure out what they value, what you value, compare the two, figure out what makes sense and how you can kind of differentiate yourself. What do their processes look like? Again, you can figure this out by looking at their website, their clients' websites, looking at articles they've read or articles they've written, blogs they've written, podcasts they've been on, all those sorts of things. Where are their search rankings? So once you identify those competitors, think about the search terms that you want to rank for. Think about where they rank for those, if you can figure that out. Figure out the different terms that they rank for. Know that, maybe it's going to be difficult to compete in that arena. And just try to figure out, what do we have to do to compete there, or should we be competing somewhere else? All good things to have in your market analysis, but really the key is you want to do a deep dive to figure out exactly the sandbox that you're playing in and who you're playing in that sandbox with. Number 3, strategy. This is crucial. There are only 3 possible business strategies. That's it. You can compete on price, so you can be the lowest cost producer, which means that you've got to be really, really militant about controlling your own costs. If that's something that you're into, go for it. By all means, the agencies that we work with, I can honestly say that not a single one of them wants to be that agency. They don't want to compete on price. And the reason is because agencies drive a lot of value. They drive a ton of value for their clients. And in exchange for that value that they drive, they should get value in return. Being the lowest cost producer, that's almost a fool's errand in today's game, especially with globalization, having access to very cheap talent across the globe and technology and things like that. It's almost not a good idea. But we'll leave it there. A horizontal market. What a horizontal market means is that you've got something, and it could be anything. It doesn't matter how small it is, but just anything. You've got anything that the entire industry does not have. You're the only one in the industry, in that market that you're trying to compete in, that has that. It doesn't matter how small of a thing that is. It's just got to be something, and you've got to compete on that, and that's what you've got to be using to drive future revenue. That's how you've got to be differentiating yourself. Vertical market, a little bit different. That means that you're going to serve a specific client, a specific type of client. You're going to do SEO for plumbers in Florida. That's a vertical market. You're going to do SEO for golf courses in Texas, or just golf courses in general. That's a vertical market. What you want to be sure of is that you're not trying to straddle 2 or 3 of these possible strategies. If you don't have if you're trying to straddle multiple strategies, you don't have a strategy at all. And that is the best way to ensure long-run mediocrity. You got to focus on one of these 3 buckets. There's only 3 buckets. You got to pick one. Okay? SWOT analysis, also super important. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You want to make sure that you're building your strategy around those 4 things. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of detail about SWOT analysis here. That's a topic unto itself, but I am going to provide a link to a blog that Live Plan wrote in the show notes that I think is a really good resource. Tells you exactly how to do SWOT analysis and why that's important. Number 4, marketing. And I see this all the time as something that gets totally skipped by marketers, which is fascinating unto itself being an accountant, but it is what it is. As a marketer, you've got to pay attention. It's one thing to pay attention to your client's marketing. You've got to do that because that's what brings in the revenue. But you've got to pay attention to your marketing too because you got to bring in revenue. Okay. What channels and methods are you going to use for your marketing? What is your budget going to be? And I'll tell you, at least just starting out, it should be around 5%. It may need to be a little bit higher depending on what market you're trying to serve and depending on how well known you are in that market and how much experience you have. But 5% is kind of a good benchmark to start from. Any more than that, and you got to start asking questions. Any less than that, and you're probably not even doing anything for your marketing, and you're probably seeing that in your top line revenue numbers. I promise you. How are you going to vet clients and prospects? Super important. This helps you to make sure that you're not some point down the road saddled with a whole bunch of clients and prospects that you don't even really want to serve, right? That gets back to that whole future vision of what you want your business to be. Branding and how you'll develop it. What's the process going to be? What are your colors going to be? What's your logo going to look like? What's your tagline going to be? All of that super important to have in your business plan. Operations. What is the corporate entity structure going to be? Who's going to own the agency? Is it going to be, a separate holding company that owns an office space that you rent, and you're going to have an operating company with a couple of partners? Is it going to be a single member LLC? How are you going to have that tax? Is it going to be an S Corp? Is it going to be a C Corp? Are you going to have partners? Are you going to have shareholders? What's that going to look like? And why? How did you select that? What's your corporate org chart going to be? So what is the folks who are working in your agency, if you have employees, if you have contractors, what's that going to look like? Who is going to manage those people? What are their job titles going to be? What is their job description going to be? What are you going to pay them? A couple of great resources that you can look at. Robert Half does a survey for marketing and creative agencies as far as salaries. That's a good place to start. Glassdoor, PayScale, Salary.com. Those are also good places to start. Industry publications, good place to figure out salaries. But all of those things are going to feed what your budget is going to need to be. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But you need to have some sort of an expectation of what you're going to pay people. Are you going to offer them benefits? That's going to be another financial consideration. If you're going to offer benefits, generally speaking, what you want to do is take that salary, multiply it by 1.25. That'll get you at least in the ballpark of what that person is actually going to cost you to employ them. But super important to consider what your org chart is going to look like. Who's going to report to who? What's their job title going to be? What's their description going to be? How's that going to factor into the service that you're trying to deliver and the price that you're trying to deliver it at and the margin that you're trying to deliver it at? Your products and services, what are you actually going to do and how are you going to deliver it? Big question. Your tech stack. Now, we're thinking about this from an operational perspective. I'm going to touch on this again in a minute from a financial perspective. But you need to know exactly the software that you need to deliver at least a minimum viable product and how much it's going to cost and how it's going to flow into your budget. It's really, really easy to go in, especially when you're starting up, to think I'm going to need this software and this software and this software. I know it's not a big deal. It's just $99 a month. I know it's not a big deal. It's just $29 a month. But before you know it, you've got a whole bunch of software that you're not using because you don't have clients in that arena yet. It's super expensive. You've wasted a bunch of money on it. It's drained your capital, and now you got a problem. You have to start taking on clients that maybe you don't necessarily want to serve, but you need to take them on because you need the revenue because your capital is not so good, and you've got to pay the mortgage still. A tech stack is something that you really need to pay attention to. What do you absolutely positively need to deliver a minimum viable service, and what's the cost, and how is that going to factor into your budget? KPIs. What are you going to measure? How are you going to measure it? What's the data source going to be? How often are you going to look at it? And what do you need to measure in order to determine whether or not you're successful? Good way to start here is to measure yourself. Measure if you're an advanced business, if you've been around for a while, measure yourself against yourself and the industry, both. And if you're just starting out, start with industry metrics. Okay, it's going to give you a good jumping off point to figure out whether or not what you're doing is the right way to do it, or whether or not you're successful. It's not just about the amount of cash that's in the bank, although that's a really big metric, and everything leads back to cash because you're not doing this for free. This is not a jobby; it is a business. But but there's a bunch of different KPIs that'll kind of figure out exactly where the holes are in the business that maybe isn't impacting the long-term goal. And then finally, measuring capacity. This is a big one. Are you going to track time in your agency? And I've got another video that I did as far as implementing timesheets in your agency. Are you going to track time? If you are, what software are you going to use? How are you going to track it? Are you going to track it by client? Are you going to track it by project? Are you going to bill based on time? Or are you going to do value-based billing? How are you going to measure how many hours are you going to use as far as what the standard is for what you can expect as far as billable time from your employees? Is it going to be 32? Is it going to be 34? Is it going to be 30? Somewhere in there is reasonable. How much vacation are you going to give your employees? That gets back to the corporate org chart and the employees that you're going to have, because then that determines the capacity as well. But how are you going to measure it? Is it going to be the timesheet? And then here's another way to do it. If you have some sort of project management software, some sort of a ticketing software like a Zendesk, or some sort of a client portal that you've got that has a ticketing mechanism in it, you can measure capacity there too. It takes a little, it's not as precise. It takes a little bit more, but there's certainly trade-offs between the timesheet and then some other system that you can use to manage or to measure how much capacity your employees have, how much capacity they've used, and what you can expect as far as projects that you're bringing on around turnaround times and things like that. Big question, definitely something to think about. And then finally, number 6, finance. This is where we specialize. So obviously this is near and dear to my heart. How much capital do you need? This goes back to working capital. We've got another video on that on this channel as well. How much capital are you going to need? How long is it going to last? What can you expect? I mean, we just did the tech stack. We just did the employees, so we kind of know what the expenses are going to be. Are you going to rent office space? Are you going to work virtually? That's a big question nowadays too. Run that out. Figure out, okay, my software is going to cost me $1,000 a month. My rent's going to cost me $2,000 a month. I've got employees, salary, multiplied by 1.25. That's another $5,000. All right, I need how much runway to kind of let the business take off. I'll tell you that one of the biggest reasons that we see for failure is businesses that are not well capitalized when they start. Strategy always takes time to take hold in the marketplace. It doesn't just happen overnight unless you're really, really lucky, or if you have a big name and you're kind of already and you're just kind of going out on your own. It takes time to play out. You need to have enough capital so you let the strategy play out and start to take hold in the marketplace. Which banks are you going to use and why? We've got a bank checklist, how to select a bank checklist. There's going to be a link to that in the show notes as well. But what bank are you going to use? Why are you going to use it? That's a big consideration because it's going to impact how you operate, how you get paid. Is your bank going to allow you to get paid the way that you want to get paid to allow your customer, your client, to have the client experience that you are envisioning for them? All of those things kind of go together. Does your bank integrate with PayPal? Just about everyone does, but it's a consideration. Does it implement with your invoicing system or your client portal? Things to think about. Your financial software as well, and I'll get to that in a second. Pricing methodology. How are you going to bill your clients? Is it going to be by the hour? Is it going to be value-based billing? Is it going to be some sort of a subscription? Is it going to be some sort of a blend? Think about that long and hard. Make sure that that's very well detailed in your business plan. Cash reserves. How much cash do you need to maintain on a continuous basis? We recommend somewhere between 2 and 6 months. You've got to quantify that exactly with how your business is going to operate and how it's operating at that point in time. We've got a cash reserves calculator on our website, betterwaycpa.com/cash reserves. I highly recommend you go check that out and that you make that a part of your business plan. That gets me into financial projections. We want to project the P&L, we want to project the balance sheet, and we want to project the cash flow statement. And all of those things need to tie together with all of the things we've already talked about. If you find that you're going to project forward what your operations are going to look like, the revenue that you're expecting, all of those things, and the salary cost is going to be really high, and the rent's going to be really high, and the tech stack costs a lot of money, and you're going to be cash flow negative for a period of time, and you're going to see when you forecast the balance sheet exactly how it's going to impact your working capital, and you may say that, well, we don't have any working capital, and then that's a problem. Then you go back and then you rethink about how you're putting together this business plan. The financial projections are a huge piece because that's going to tell you whether or not everything that you've already considered, whether it's realistic or not, and if it's not realistic, what you're going to do to make it realistic or what changes you need to make. Huge consideration. And then finally, what's your financial tech stack going to be? You need a general ledger. And when I say general ledger, what I mean is QuickBooks, Xero, FreshBooks, Wave. Those are the most common accounting softwares. You need You may or may not need a billing software like a bill.com, which is an accounts payable software. You may or may not need payroll software. You may or may not need a dashboarding software or some sort of a analytical tool. Things to think about, but make sure that they're included here and make sure that they're included in the budget. Okay, so I've rambled on long enough. Here are my Jack Handy final and deep thoughts. Number one, get help. Find yourself a CPA. The local SBA office is a great resource. The SBA website is a great resource. SCORE, which is a bunch of retired executives who have been there, done that, who help small businesses. Tons of chapters all across the country. Great resources. How do you put one of these things together? Just literally, how do you put it together? It's a great question. You can use Word, you can use Google Docs, or you can use a software like LivePlan to create your business plan where it's templated and they'll kind of just guide you through it. Number three, super important to list all of the professionals in your business plan who are helping you with your business plan and who are helping you with your business. If you've got outside resources that you're utilizing, it's a great idea to put those in the business plan if you're going to take that to a bank for sure. But on an ongoing basis, when you're revisiting this thing, and that's point number 4, revisit the plan at least once per year, you want to have that list of professionals that you're utilizing and who you're relying on to provide you with guidance and advice and their contact information. You want that in there. Ultimately, what we want from a business plan is this is the document from the founders and the creators of the business that lays out exactly what we do, why we do it, how we do it, when we're going to do it. Lays out the whole thing, so it's not just sitting in somebody's head that your employees don't have access to, or that a bank doesn't have access to, or even for that matter that you just forget about and you kind of just lose your way. It's revisiting this on a yearly basis is a great way to just kind of figure out, okay, we've lost our way a little bit, we're stagnant a little bit. Here's why, because here's what we were thinking about before, and somewhere we got off track. It's a great exercise. We recommend that all of our clients do it at least once a year. Resources for today's show, I'm going to link to our marketing agency sample Wayfinder. Wayfinder is a consulting engagement that we go through to level set and do some benchmarking and figure out how we get you from here to there, wherever there is. There's going to be a link to a YouTube video I did, What is Cloud Accounting and Why is it Awesome? That gets back into the tech stack for the financial piece. A webinar that I did, it's an hour long, Cash Flow 101. That's the second piece to this, these pillars of success really is what I'll call it. The 2 pillars of success, the business plan and managing and measuring cash flow. That goes into cash flow in more detail than you'll probably ever want to know, but it's probably a good resource for you. A checklist, how to choose a bank. The SBA, write your business plan. There's a great link to the SBA site in there, link to the SCORE website, and then an article, What is SWOT Analysis and How to Do It Right. That's from LivePlan, which is the business plan software. Great article. Highly recommend you read it. Okay, let's connect. You can find me at chris@betterwaycpa.com. That's the email. 843-608-0298 is the phone number. Then you can find me on social, pretty much everywhere. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Quora, Pinterest, and Instagram. Pretty much, if you need to find me, you can definitely find me. So that is it for me today. I certainly appreciate you watching. If you like this video, please like it, please share it. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps us to grow and helps us to figure out exactly what content you want to see and what problems we can help you solve. So thanks a lot, everybody. Take it easy.